We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. New week, new Hangout. This is Sandy Levesque, and here with Glenn in Tennessee. You want to say hi, Glenn?
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, because if we don't speak, I used to think that people watching a Hangout could see the little photos at the bottom, but
Yeah.
you only see the person who's actually speaking. So sometimes when I started to watch some of the older Hangouts, I
Yeah.
would I realized it would look like I was just talking to myself because I'd be like, "Hi, welcome, Geraldine," and no one would, and she wouldn't say. Yeah. So
And I notice also that it's a little tricky speaking on the Hangouts because sometimes I can trample on what you're trying to say or vice versa. Right? I mean,
there's a delay.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
one of just a
But
delay.
I guess
So,
the technology will get better as time goes on.
if you tell me what page we're on, I'm willing to read today.
Okay, thank you. So we're on page 218. We're at the chapter on overcoming the 6 ghosts of fear, and
Oh,
we're at the fear of old age. So we're on.
okay, that's just the top of the page then on that. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do the share.
Okay. So for everyone watching this or watching the replay, basically we've been covering the 6 main fears that people suffer from and often unconsciously suffer from, so that people can become more aware of them and start to not have them be so controlled, not be so controlled by them. So you ready, Glenn?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, the fear of old age. You can see it there, right?
Yes. Yeah, we can see it.
In the main, this fear grows out of two sources. First, the thought that old age may bring with it poverty. Secondly, and by far the most common source of origin, from false and cruel teachings of the past, which have been too well mixed with fire and brimstone and other bogies cunningly designed to enslave man through fear. In the basic fear of old age, man has two very sound reasons for his apprehension, one growing out of his distrust of his fellow man who may seize whatever worldly goods he may possess, and the other arising from the terrible pictures of the world beyond, which were planted in his mind through social heredity before he came into full possession of his mind. The possibility of ill health, which is more common as people grow older, is also a contributing cause of this common fear of old age. Eroticism also enters into the cause of the fear of old age, as no man cherishes the thought of diminishing sex attraction. The most common cause of fear of old age is associated with the possibility of poverty. Poorhouse is not a pretty word. It throws out a chill into the mind of every person who faces the possibility of having to spend his declining years on a poor farm. Another contributing cause of the fear of old age is the possibility of loss of freedom and independence, as old age may bring with it the loss of both physical and economic freedom. Symptoms of the fear of old age. The commonest symptoms of this fear are the tendency to slow down and develop an inferiority complex at the age of mental maturity around the age of 40, falsely believing oneself to be slipping because of age. The truth is that man's most useful years, mentally and spiritually, are those between 40 and 60. The habit of speaking apologetically of oneself as being old merely because one has reached the age of 40 or 50, instead of reversing the rule and expressing gratitude for having reached the age of wisdom and understanding. The habit of killing off initiative, imagination, and self-reliance by falsely believing oneself too old to exercise these qualities. The habit of the man or woman of 40 dressing with the aim of trying to appear much younger and affecting mannerisms of youth, thereby inspiring ridicule by both friends and strangers. So next we move on to the fear of death. To some, this is the cruelest of all the basic fears. The reason is obvious. The terrible pangs of fear associated with the thought of death in the majority of cases may be charged directly to religious fanaticism. So-called heathen are less afraid of death than the more civilized. For hundreds of millions of years, man has been asking the still unanswered questions, whence and whither? Where did I come from and where am I going? During the darker ages of the past, the more cunning and crafty were not so slow to offer the answer to these questions. For a price, witness now the major origin of the fear of death. Come into my tent, embrace my faith, accept my dogmas, and I will give you a ticket that will admit you straight away into heaven when you die, cries the leader of sectarianism. Remain out of my tent, says the same leader, and may the devil take you and burn you throughout eternity. Eternity is a long time. Fire is a terrible thing. The thought of eternal punishment with fire not only causes man to fear death, it often causes him to lose reason. It destroys interest in life and makes happiness impossible. During my research, I reviewed a book entitled A Catalog of the Gods, in which were listed the 30,000 gods which man has worshipped. Think of it. 30,000 of them, represented by everything from a crawfish to a man. It is little wonder that men have become frightened at the approach of death. While a religious leader may not be able to provide safe conduct into heaven, nor by the lack of such provision allow the unfortunate to descend into hell, the possibility of the latter seems so terrible that the very thought of it lays hold of the imagination in such a realistic way that it paralyzes reason and sets up the fear of death. In truth, no man knows, and no man has ever known, what heaven or hell is like, nor does any man know if either place actually exists. This very lack of positive knowledge opens the door of the human mind to the charlatan, so he may enter and control the mind with his stock of ledger domain and various brands of pious fraud and trickery. The fear of death is not as common now as it was during the age when there were no great colleges and universities. Men of science have turned the spotlight of truth upon the world, and this truth is rapidly freeing men and women from this terrible fear of death. The young men and young women who attend the colleges and universities are not easily impressed by fire and brimstone. Through the aid of biology, astronomy, geology, and other related sciences, the fears of the Dark Ages which gripped the minds of men and destroyed their reason have been dispelled. Insane asylums are filled with men and women who have gone mad because of the fear of death. This fear is useless. Death will come no matter what anyone may think about it. Accept it as a necessity and pass the thought out of your mind. It must be a necessity or would not come to all. Perhaps it's not as bad as it has been pictured. The entire world is made up of only two things, energy and matter. In elementary physics, we learn that neither matter nor energy, the two realities known to man, can be created or destroyed. Both matter and energy can be transformed, but neither can be destroyed. Life is energy. If it is anything, if neither energy nor matter can be destroyed, of course, life cannot be destroyed. Life, like other forms of energy, may be passed through various processes of transition or change, but it cannot be destroyed. Death is a mere transition. If death is not mere change or transition, then nothing comes after death except a long, eternal, peaceful sleep, and sleep is nothing to be feared. Thus you may wipe out forever the fear of death. Symptoms of the fear of death. The general symptoms of this fear are the habit of thinking about dying instead of making the most of life, due generally to lack of purpose or lack of suitable occupation. This fear is more prevalent among the aged, but sometimes the more youthful are victims of it. The greatest of all remedies for the fear of death is a burning desire for achievement, backed by useful service to others. A busy person seldom has time to think about dying. He finds life too thrilling to worry about death. Sometimes the fear of death is closely associated with the fear of poverty, where one's death would leave loved ones poverty-stricken. In other cases, the fear of death is caused by illness and the consequent breaking down of physical body resistance. The commonest cause of the fear of death are ill health, poverty, lack of appropriate occupation, disappointment over love, insanity, religious fanaticism. Old man worry. Worry is a state of mind based upon fear. It works slowly but persistently. It's insidious and subtle. Step by step, it digs itself in until it paralyzes one's reasoning faculty, destroys self-confidence and initiative. Worry is a form of sustained fear caused by indecision. Therefore, it is a state of mind which can be controlled. An unsettled mind is helpless. Indecision makes an unsettled mind. Most individuals lack the willpower to reach decisions promptly and to stand by them after they have been made, even during normal business conditions. During periods of economic unrest, such as the world recently experienced, and we can relate to that ourselves too, right? The individual is handicapped not alone by his inherent nature to be slow at reaching decision, but he's influenced by the indecision of others around him who have created a state of mass indecision. During the Depression, the whole atmosphere all over the world was filled with fearenza and worryitis, the two mental disease germs which began to spread themselves after the Wall Street frenzy in 1929. There is only one known antidote for these germs. It is the habit of prompt and firm decision. Moreover, it is an antidote which every individual must apply for himself. We do not worry over conditions once we have reached a decision to follow a definite line of action. I once interviewed a man who was to be electrocuted 2 hours later. The condemned man was the calmest of some 8 men who were in the death cell with him. His calmness prompted me to ask him how it felt to know he was going into eternity in a short while. With a smile of confidence on his face, he said, "It feels fine. Just think, brother, my troubles will soon be over. I have nothing but trouble all my life. I've had nothing but trouble all my life. It has been a hardship to get food and clothing. Soon I will not need these things. I have felt fine ever since I learned for certain that I must die. I made up my mind then to accept my fate in good spirit." As he spoke, he devoured a dinner of proportions sufficient for 3 men, eating every mouthful of the food brought to him and apparently enjoying it as much as if no disaster awaited him. Decision gave this man resignation to his fate. Decision can also prevent one's acceptance of undesired circumstances. The 6 basic fears become translated into a state of worry through indecision. Relieve yourself forever the fear of death by reaching a decision to accept death as an inescapable event. Whip the fear of poverty by reaching a decision to get along with whatever wealth you can accumulate without worry. Put your foot upon the neck of the fear of criticism by reaching a decision not to worry about what other people think, do, or say. Eliminate the fear of old age by reaching a decision to accept it not as a handicap but as a great blessing which carries with it wisdom, self-control, and understanding not known to youth. Acquit yourself of the fear of ill health by the decision to forget symptoms. Master the fear of loss of love by reaching a decision to get along without love if that is necessary. Kill the habit of worry in all its forms by reaching a general blanket decision that nothing which life has to offer is worth the price of worry. With this decision will come poise, peace of mind, and calmness of thought, which will bring happiness. A man whose mind is filled with fear not only destroys his own chances of intelligent action, but he transmits these destructive vibrations to the minds of all who come in contact with him and destroys also their chances. Even a dog or a horse knows when its master lacks courage. Moreover, a dog or a horse will pick up the vibrations of fear thrown off by its master and behave accordingly. Lower down the line of intelligence in the animal kingdom, one finds the same capacity to pick up the vibrations of fear. A honeybee immediately senses fear in the mind of a person for reasons unknown. A bee will sting the person whose mind is releasing vibrations of fear much more readily than it will molest the person whose mind registers no fear. The vibrations of fear pass from one mind to another just as quickly and just as surely as the sound of the human voice passes from the broadcasting station to the receiving set of a radio and by the self-same medium. Mental telepathy is a reality. Thoughts pass from one mind to another voluntarily, whether or not this fact is recognized by either the person releasing the thoughts or the person who picks up those thoughts. The person who gives expression by word of mouth to negative or destructive thoughts is practically certain to experience the results of those words in the form of a destructive kickback. The release of destructive thought impulses alone without the aid of words produces also a kickback in more ways than one. First of all, and perhaps most important to be remembered, the person who releases thoughts of a destructive nature must suffer damage through the breaking down of the faculty of creative imagination. Secondly, the presence in the mind of any destructive emotion develops a negative personality which repels people and often converts them into antagonists. The third source of damage to the person who entertains or releases negative thoughts lies in this significant fact. These thought impulses are not only damaging to others, but they embed themselves in the subconscious mind of the person releasing them, and there become a part of his character. One is never through with a thought merely by releasing it. When a thought is released, it spreads in every direction through the medium of the ether, but it also plants itself permanently in the subconscious mind of the person releasing it. Your business in life is presumably to achieve success. To be successful, you must find peace of mind, acquire the material needs of life, above all, attain happiness. All of these evidences of success begin in the form of thought impulses. You may control your own mind. You may have the power to feed it whatever thought impulses you choose. With this privilege goes also the responsibility of using it constructively. You are the master of your own earthly destiny just as surely as you have the power to control your own thoughts. You may influence, direct, and eventually control your own environment, make your life what you want it to be, or you may neglect to exercise the privilege, which is yours, to make your life to order, thus casting yourself upon the broad sea of circumstance where you will be tossed hither and yon like a chip on the waves of the ocean. The Devil's Workshop, the 7 basic evil. Do we want to stop there, Sandy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's a good idea. I was just unmuting myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good because I think then that's the last passage before the end of the book. So that seems like a good place. Yeah. It's funny. I watched a film yesterday, which is kind of relevant to the fear of old age that he talked about.
Oh, cool. What was the film?
It's called The Bucket List. With Jack Nicholson and Morgan
Freeman. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful movie. Yeah.
It's great. It's funny because it reminded me of the scene where, if you guys watching haven't seen it, it's about 2 terminally ill men who are in a cancer ward, and they decide to break out, and they have 6 months left to live. And one of them starts to write a bucket list of things he wants to do before kicking the bucket, and the other one says, well, why don't we actually do it? And so they start this adventure for 3 months of doing all the things on the list and going to the Himalayas, going to the French Riviera, seeing the pyramids in Egypt. And he says to him, do you want to wait until you die or actually start doing these things before you go? And they start their adventure.
Yeah. Very fun.
Yeah, it is. And then interestingly enough, they come home from the journey because they realize that there's some people they want to see at home before they go. So it has these 2 different sort of messages in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I liked also what he said about worry as a state of mind based on fear and how it sort of, I think when you understand more about how worry works and how fear works, it makes it easier to not be consumed by it, because you just start to see it like someone once said in a workshop I was in, that they see it as like a dragon, and that when they have days where they might have more worry or fear than other days, they'd be like, oh, okay, the dragon's here, am I going to let the dragon win or not? And it, like making it less, because I for so long, I don't know about you, Glenn, but I would just kind of let the fear sit there, or let worry. I just thought it was normal.
But you know what? Fear is like Mary has an interesting tape it's about Samson and Delilah, in which he talks about Delilah being fear that Samson entertained, right? So when you entertain fear, it can be your undoing, and it's not a good thing to entertain fear. So now, using Greg's approach, I look at fear now as information to me, that there's something that I've got to look at, right? Something to look at and examine, and then create the proper story to remove it, and get it out of there, just get it out of there, because because fear can be crippling. It can move you into indecision, right? It can actually reverse your progress in some cases, sometimes in some cases, So, and we've all been through it, right? We've all been there, gone through some dark times and some good times,
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you put it as information. Um,
Information.
that's
Yeah.
really distinct. Yeah. I just made a video
So,
about that this
so
weekend.
from that perspective, I mean, it is good information, right? You can
Yeah.
you can say, oh, that's information to me. Why am I dwelling on? Why am I putting my energy to that? You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In the same way that if you're it's like at the weekend, Chico, my dog, was sick,
Yeah.
and I knew that he had eaten something he shouldn't have eaten, because he's never normally sick, and so
Yeah.
his body is getting rid of it, and telling him, him feeling like, oh, I need to vomit is his awareness. Oh, okay, something's
Yeah.
about to happen here, and then he vomits out the stuff,
Yeah.
and I think it's like that with fear. It's like we have this thought process or this belief or something that's niggling away at us that we're not aware of. And so
Yes.
the fear is like the being sick. It's like your body telling you, because it's quite physical. I experience it as my heart will sink. It feels like that, or you suddenly feel like your shoulders get tense.
Yes.
Often it's our
Yeah.
physiology that's telling us,
Yeah.
and
It shows itself
that's
in
like
your physiology, right? Yeah. Yes.
yeah, exactly, because you start to feel differently, and
Yes.
and, and that's like the being sick. It's like, okay, you're being your attention's being brought to something that you're not aware of,
Yeah.
and when you do that, and I love what and we've mentioned it quite a lot now, but it's just so good in Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail, that they have a tool which is when you notice fears, you first of all just become aware of it, and then you can talk yourself through it. So like, if you're fearful about, let's say, a health problem, you can say to yourself, okay, right now I feel I have worry about this, or I'm worried about this, but I know that if I learn to notice this and to tell myself better stories about it, that my health will gradually improve, and you can make the stories more and more exciting, the more believable they start to feel.
Right.
And when I first, and I think I said this as well, but it's just, I was thinking about it again yesterday. The first time I read that, I thought, I wasn't totally sure how it would work, to be honest. And it seemed so wordy because the examples he gives in the book are so
Yeah.
long. I
Yeah.
thought, as if I'm going to have the time to say that in the moment. But the
But you know
funny
what?
thing,
Our subconscious is not really smart, right? It's not very
no,
smart. So,
exactly.
but you can use those words. You can use those words greatly, and you know what? It'll take them in. It will take them in.
Yeah, that's what I found, is that I've been practicing it, and it's weird, I've really noticed the difference, because just the fact of saying this to myself, and it doesn't seem like a long story when you start doing it. It's just kind of you just it just takes like 20 seconds,
Yeah.
and then the next time that same feeling comes up, it's not as strong anymore, because it's like each time
Wonderful.
you're saying this to yourself, you're reprogramming yourself
Yeah.
to respond differently. And so the next time that same feeling comes up, it's different. It literally is not as powerful. And so I can imagine that, he says if you do this, he said that after a year and a half, certain aspects of his life were totally different. I mean, this is how he went from having $800,000 worth of debts and being on the verge of losing everything, his family, and going to sleep and asking God to, make it so he doesn't wake up in the morning,
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
to totally changing his situation and getting out of debt, having, an abundant financial reality, and being happy with what he does, and then writing these books, and, in a year and a half. So it's just how
And,
powerful our subconscious is.
yeah. I sent you an interview with him through message. You have to.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it pretty much.
Yeah.
So, how does it feel to be on the frontier of this?
Well, it's great.
Great.
Oh my, yeah.
Sometime when we're doing a chat on our own, I'll tell you a little bit about Frontier,
Okay.
and my wife's experience through that.
Ah. Yeah, well, it's interesting because he says in the book that people don't. I think people still think of quantum physics as being a bit woo-woo, you know, or a bit.
Yes.
Um, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of it's still seen as being on the periphery, and what you realize from reading his book is how it's not the periphery at all, which is how I used to see. Even though I've been interested in quantum physics probably for 4 or 5 years now, this book has totally changed my perspective on it because you realize from the science, the scientific experiments, it's
Yes.
actually the framework. It's not the periphery. It should be the framework for everything we do, and it's just not yet there because it was the same with classical physics. It took a while for non-scientists to start to incorporate
Right.
the principles of classical physics in what they were doing, like Freud, like Darwin, like loads of people that influenced
Yeah.
all aspects of life, and that's will start to happen for quantum physics. So it's really interesting to
Yeah.
be.
A century from now, like you said, they'll look back and they'll say, "Well, how did people ever think it was any other way?" Right? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? You know?
Yeah, that's it. And I found myself thinking this morning. I'm not sure why I was thinking about this, but I was thinking about Angelina Jolie and how she had, had a double mammogram or
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
mastectomy, not mammogram,
Yeah,
because of having her mum having had cancer. And I just thought, in 100 years' time, people would look at that and think that was crazy.
yeah, that was proactive. I think that was proactive on her part. I mean, she thought she was, she wanted to not go into that territory, I guess. I'm not sure what,
Yeah,
And here
but
she's
when
directing Unbroken.
that's right, yeah. But my
You know?
point was just that when you realize that your thoughts create everything, it's not just it just wouldn't randomly happen that
Yeah,
cancer would strike in a part of your body just because
yeah,
it did with your fat. I think the way it could work is that because if she was so expecting it to because it had happened to her family, then she would probably create it as well. But
yeah.
she would have the power. I believe she would have the power
I do
to do
too.
something about it.
I
So
do
it's
too.
just I believe in 100 years' time that kind of thinking will be, as you
Yeah,
said, be
yeah.
like,
And
whoa,
her action was based on the classical physics model, right?
exactly. That's
Based on the
exactly it.
classical
Yeah,
physics model,
yeah.
not the quantum physics model. So,
Exactly. Whereas quantum physics would be like, well, you influence what you look at,
yeah.
so you can change the way you look at it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
did you listen to the tape 16 I sent you, or disc 16?
I started to, but then I wasn't on my computer very much over the weekend.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I
we're
was
busy.
dancing and swimming and out and about walking a lot. So no, I'll listen to it this week though. I've downloaded it. It's in my iTunes library. I've done that. So I
Yeah,
started to, and then I got someone Skyped me, and then I went to sleep after. So, but thank you. Yeah, I will listen to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and also I haven't figured out yet what to do about the times. So there's still time to vote if you're watching and you haven't voted yet in our poll, then please do that. So thank you for reading, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we don't have much of left of the book.
No. So
No.
what's the plan, Sandy?
Well, I'd like to read the lecture notes again because I
Oh,
find them just as interesting as the book. I'm
yeah.
also going to ask the guy who sent them to me if he has the
The
fo-
additional,
the rest
yes.
of them because I've got half of them.
Yeah,
So I'll ask him if he can send me the next five.
that would be nice.
Um, because I find that the notes are just as brilliant, really, because there's extra stuff in there.
Yeah, there is, and it's very condensed too, right? I mean, it really kind of brings it down, to really
Yeah,
focus, too.
exactly. And it covers some of the points that are not covered in much detail in the book, and it just is a nice addition. So
Yeah,
cool. All
cool.
right. Well, have a great day, Glenn, and
You have a
everyone
great
watching.
day, and
Watching.
everybody else have a great day, and we got a great week to work with here, right? So let's have some fun.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Let's go out and create some magic.
Okay,
Hey, thanks everyone, and see you tomorrow.
okay, bye bye.
Bye, Glenn. Bye.